For more now on Emmanuel Macron's trip to Brazil, let's bring in Latin America specialist Anthony Pereira in Miami. Anthony, thanks for joining us. Macron kicked off this trip in Belém in the Amazon. President Lula traveled a very long way to personally welcome the French president there. How big a sign was that of the importance of Macron's trip to Lula?
Well, I think it's important to both leaders, and they, at first glance, they seem very different, different generations. Macron comes from banking, Lula comes from trade union movement. But in many ways, what they're struggling with politically in each of their countries is similar. They're both trying to create kind of centrist governments that stave off a hard right challenge. But I think it goes beyond the two leaders, because if you go to, compare the foreign ministries of the two countries, I think they see in each other potential allies, because for the Brazilians, France is the most independent G7 country, and I mean independent of the United States foreign policy. And for France, I think Brazil is a player in the global South, especially on issues around climate change, that they can work with. And so as your package showed, there were a lot of business leaders that came with Macron, not just the CEOs of Carrefour and Airbus, the usual suspects, but CEOs of startups, green startups, that can potentially invest in green technology in the Amazon in a way that would complement the Amazon fund, the fund that's funded primarily by Germany and Norway.
So this trip is also very significant because the last time a French president made an official visit to Brazil was 8 years ago. That was with François Hollande. This trip's being billed as a sort of reset between France and Brazil. Just explain to us why the reset. What led to the fallout between the two countries?
Well, you probably remember this. Back in August of 2019, things got pretty nasty between Macron and Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil at the time. Macron was talking about the fires burning in the Amazon. There was a big surge of deforestation under Bolsonaro, and Bolsonaro took it very personally and insulted Macron's wife and said that it was neo-colonial of France to be talking this way. And so, that was probably the nadir of relations between France and Brazil. And Macron, like Joe Biden in the United States, was very pleased to see Lula win election and for Bolsonaro not to be reelected. He congratulated him very early on. So I think the reset really began in 2022 before Lula took office. And of course, Lula went to the COP meeting that year in Sharm el-Sheikh and said, Brazil is back, and relations became much better. So I think this is a kind of continuation of that reset that we saw after the Bolsonaro government, after Bolsonaro lost the election in 2022.
So the focus Tuesday was really on the environment. Talk us through what for you are the other key issues, the most important issues that will come out of these talks over the next 2 days.
Well, Macron's going to the base in the state of Rio de Janeiro where they're building the subs. Now, those are diesel-powered subs, but the idea is that eventually, by the end of the decade, France and Brazil are going to be co-producing nuclear-powered subs. I think that's very important geopolitically. That's a big investment that both countries have made to work together. I think that the two leaders, when they go to Brasilia, which is the end of the trip, he's going to Sao Paulo after the submarine visit. They're going to talk about Ukraine, I think, but I think they're going to agree to disagree mostly about that. I think more important for the Brazilians is that they probably want to talk to Macron about Haiti, which is getting ever worse and really needs, I think, some kind of solution from international community, from at least regionally, and Venezuela, where things have gotten worse in Venezuela, where every time the opposition suggests a new candidate, that candidate gets disqualified. So I think there'll be other things on the table in addition to Ukraine, which I think France and Brazil are kind of far apart on that particular issue. So they might talk about other things.
Anthony, just very briefly, there is an elephant in the room in this trip, and that is a potential European trade deal with the South American bloc, Mercosur. Just explain to us a bit about that and why that's so controversial.
Yeah, so France is, leading this criticism of the EU-Mercosur trade deal, which was signed in 2019, but has never been ratified by the EU member states or by the Mercosur states. So I think the fact that, the Brazilians know that France is opposed to that deal and are still willing to extend a state visit to Macron is a sign that their long-term interests are aligned, and they're willing to put that aside and discuss other things: trade, investment, the bioeconomy. fight against hunger and so on. So I think it's very significant that even with that disagreement, they've arranged this state visit of Emmanuel Macron.